If you've been following along, last week we talked about grief, the losses that come with leaving a high control religion, the people, the community, the version of the future you thought you were building. And grief, as painful as it is, tends to have a kind of softness to it. Anger doesn't. Anger has edges. It can feel loud and uncomfortable, and sometimes completely out of nowhere. You might be driving or washing dishes or watching something completely unrelated, and suddenly there it is. If that's happening for you, this video is for you. There's a story many of us were told, either directly or implicitly, about anger after leaving. That it means you're bitter. That it means you haven't moved on. That it means something is wrong with you. None of that is true. Anger in this context is not a character flaw. It's information. It's what surfaces when the mind finally has enough safety and distance to look clearly at what actually happened. Think about it this way. When you were inside, anger was not permitted. It was reframed as spiritual weakness, as pride, as evidence that you needed correction. So you learned to suppress it, to smooth it over, to explain it away. You couldn't be angry at the organization. You couldn't be angry at the elders. You couldn't be angry at the doctrine, because the doctrine was God's word. So the anger had nowhere to go. And then you left, or the leaving began, and slowly, in the weeks or months or years that followed, things started to become clearer. What was conditional? What was controlled? What was taken from you? And the anger that had nowhere to go started to find somewhere. One thing people often find confusing is the timing. You might be years out and only now started to feel genuinely angry. That's not strange. That's actually how this tends to work. In the early stages of leaving, most of your energy is going toward survival, toward navigating shunning, rebuilding a social network, managing practical life, and holding yourself together. There isn't room for anger yet. Grief often comes before anger, and grief tends to turn inward. It's about loss. It has a kind of quiet to it. Anger turns outward. It requires enough stability, enough groundedness to be able to look at something outside yourself and say, that was wrong. What was done was wrong. What I lost was real. And it didn't have to be that way. Anger is often a sign of growing clarity, not of falling apart. It's worth spending a moment here because the anger is usually about several things at once, and untangling them can be useful. There's anger at the institution, at the policies, the teachings, the structure that demanded total compliance. There's anger at specific people, elders who handled things badly, family members who chose the organization over the relationship, people who knew more than they let on. There's anger at yourself sometimes for not seeing it sooner, for defending it to others, for the years you gave. And there's a particular kind of anger that doesn't have a clear target at all. It just lives in the body. A low hum of fury at something that is hard to name. All of these are valid, and they don't all need to be resolved in the same way. The self-directed anger deserves its own moment. Many people who leave high control religions carry a specific kind of shame, not just about what they believed, but about how long they believed it, how hard they defended it, what they may have done or said to others while inside. If you shunned someone, if you reported someone, if you discouraged a family member from getting medical treatment or legal counsel, or from speaking to the wrong people, you may carry anger at yourself for that. I want to say something carefully here. You were operating inside a system specifically designed to make those behaviors feel righteous. The doctrine made shunning feel like an act of love. The reporting felt like loyalty to God. The compliance felt like faithfulness. That doesn't mean those things caused no harm. Some of them did, but anger at yourself that never moves, that just sits and corrodes, does not serve you or the people you may have hurt. There's a difference between accountability and self-punishment. One is useful, the other isn't. So what do you actually do with anger? The first thing, I think the most important, is to stop treating it as a problem to be eliminated. Anger that is acknowledged tends to move. Anger that is suppressed tends to calcify. The goal isn't to get rid of it. The goal is to let it tell you what it knows, and then to give it somewhere to go. That might look like writing a letter you never sent, getting the specific thoughts out of your head and onto a page where you can actually look at them. It might look like movement, physical energy that needs a physical outlet, not to punish yourself, just to discharge what the body is holding. It might look like a conversation with a therapist, a coach, a trusted person who won't panic at the intensity of what you're feeling and won't immediately try to fix it. What it probably doesn't look like is posting at 2 a.m. in the morning on a ex-member forum when you're at peak anger. That has its place, but it's worth noticing when it's helping you process and when it's keeping you circling. I want to come back to that word bitter, because many of us were told, or have been told since leaving, that if we're still angry, it means we're bitter. That bitterness is the thing to be afraid of. Here's what I actually think. Bitterness is what happens when anger has no outlet and no resolution for a very long time. It's not the anger itself. It's what anger becomes when it's left unaddressed, when it's never validated, when there's no space to process it. The antidote to bitterness is not suppressing the anger. It's doing something with it. Anger that moves through you, that gets acknowledged and expressed and eventually integrated, doesn't become bitterness. It becomes clarity. Sometimes it becomes fuel. Sometimes it becomes the reason you do the work you do, or speak the way you speak, or show up for people who are earlier in the process than you are. I have met people years out who are genuinely no longer angry, not because they suppressed it, but because they went through it. That's the direction of travel. Anger after leaving is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It's often a sign that something is going right, that you have enough safety now to look at what actually happened clearly, that your nervous system trusts itself enough to feel something it couldn't feel before. Let it be what it is. Don't perform calm you don't feel. Don't perform anger you've already moved past. Just stay honest with where you actually are. Next week, we're going to look at something that's deeply connected to all of this. the black and white thinking that high control religions install, why it persists long after leaving, and what it actually takes to start seeing in shades of grey again. Take care of yourself this week.